Okay, Greg Anthony here on this March 2nd, 2017 day on our calendar, and glad you're back on the Investigative Journal. And over the years, I've talked a lot about the Jesuit order, and today I wanted to get back to basics, give you a little bit of a history lesson, as well as how they are organized in our country. Before I do that, in place of my Jesuit quote of the day, I wanted to mention, and I kind of fact-checked myself. I said on a show, I think about a week ago, that there were actually 3 Jesuit generals walking the face of the earth. And I just noticed, and I forgot about this, Father Hans Kolvenbach, who resigned a number of years ago, replaced by Adolfo Nicholas, who recently resigned. And now another Jesuit general took over, passed away last year, I believe, in November. So there's only 2 Jesuit generals walking the face of the earth. Now, during my discussions of the Jesuits, I get very specific a lot of times, and several of them come to mind. Remember Father Edmund Walsh? He is the head of started the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown. And we still to this day, most of our diplomats come from there. He's been given a page on the Eisenhower website. Very instrumental in selecting Ike as our head of command during World War II, which is never reported, as well as brokering a deal with Stalin to get him into the Bolshevik Party and get him eventually to be the leader of the Soviet Union. Okay, well, we've talked about him. Then we've went to Father Thomas Michel, who is a Jesuit still walking the face of the earth right now, and he is very instrumental in uplifting Islam and working together with this Islamic movement called Chrislam. So we've talked about how he works together with the mullahs and the imams, and very instrumental in uplifting the Fethullah Gulen movement, which we've talked about yesterday on my show, which is a radical Islamic movement masked as a moderate Islamic movement. And actually he's funded by the United States taxpayers to the tune of $500 million a year with charter schools all over our country. And he is living in the Pocono Mountains. Then we talked about Father Dal Oglio. Now, this is the Syrian ISIS connection, and I've done a lot of research on him. And remember the story when he was supposedly kicked out of Syria by the Assad regime, and then kidnapped by ISIS and killed, but that was found to be false, and he is still alive. But I believe his role was very much to make sure that ISIS grew and the weapons that were coming from the United States got to the right people. And so he was the ISIS connection. So we find the Jesuits are all over the place. But generally then, people over the years, we forget about who they really, how they organize themselves. And I wanted to do that today very quickly, and then play a presentation that is very interesting about who they really are. But what do they tell us when you go to Wikipedia or something about the Jesuits? They tell us this. The Society of Jesus is a male religious congregation of the Catholic Church, which originated in Spain. The members are called Jesuits. The society is engaged in evangelization and apostolic ministry in 112 nations on 6 continents. Jesuits, they say, work in education, founding schools, colleges, universities, seminaries, intellectual research, cultural pursuits. Jesuits also give retreats, minister in hospitals and parishes, and promote social justice and ecumenical dialogue. Okay, that's how they present themselves. They're all over the place. It is the largest order in the Catholic Church, and they don't tell you they're a military order. Why would they have the head be called a general if they're not a military order? Just a simple aside. But anyway, we talked about this, the Jesuits. Remember when I've done stories on the Tony Alamo, the persecution of the Tony Alamo ministry for over a decade. And I've traced it back to the Jesuits and the Vatican working through our agencies to quiet anyone like Tony Alamo, who talks about the truth about who they really are, which we're going to get to in this later in this show after I tell you how they're organized here, because we forget that sometimes. And because of Tony's and his ministries basically telling you the truth about, they're basically telling you a lot like what I say on this show a lot. And they've been persecuted for over 40 years. And Tony Alamo's been put in jail for 175 years for crimes he didn't commit. And he spreads the gospel, and in a sense runs a mission, runs a ministry that is very similar to the Protestant reformers, who were basically targeted by the Jesuits back then. And that's when they were founded, to create to quelch the Reformation. And it goes on to this day. So we've connected the dots all the way to things that are happening today, but still people can't understand who they really are, because they listen to the double talk, and they listen to how they're presented. Sure, they do all these things as a front, but behind the scenes, those priests I mentioned are really what they're doing. They're the ends justify the means as far as the Jesuit order goes. And I say they're behind every rock, and I think that isn't exaggerating. But how are they organized in this country and in Canada? Well, in Canada and in America, they are organized into 9 provinces. So we'll start with the English-Canadian province above us. Then there's the French-Canadian province. Then they divided our country up into 7 different provinces. We have the Oregon province, the California province, the Wisconsin province, the Central and Southern province, the Chicago-Detroit province, the Maryland province, the Northeast province. So they've got, and each one of those provinces has a head. And I remember back in the day, I used to call them to ask questions, and I would never get really any answers, so I stopped doing that. But I would go call the Oregon province and say, hey, could I talk to the head of the Oregon province? And I would always get a communication director or something that would give me some double. I've never heard of Father Edmund Walsh being involved with Stalin or anything like this. I've never heard of etc., etc., etc. What about the books, the Secreta Monita, which is the secret instructions of the Jesuits? And they'd say, well, that is a fraud. So I said, you've heard of that? And one of them, I think it was from the Wisconsin province, said, yes, but they always put out this bad information about us. And anyway, so I decided again to look back at this book, The Secret Instructions of the Jesuits, and play a little presentation regarding that, which may tell us who they really are. I don't think it's a fraud, but you make up your own mind. And also do a little research into what, they're involved in most every aspect of life that I could think of. We've tried to just, look in this show and show you that, they're not up to any good. And when you start looking at the connections of the Jesuits to our government, even in NASA and all over the place. They have that telescope called Lucifer over in Arizona, at the University of Arizona. Remember we did that story? But anyway, what I wanted to do was to look at the secret instructions of the Jesuits for you and see what you think. And here we go. Let me play this. Okay, here we go. Let me pod this up. Here we go.
So you may have heard of the secret oath of the Jesuits. I looked into that, and what I found is this book called the Monita Secreta. It's on openlibrary.org, and it was written by an ex-Jesuit, and it was published originally in the year 1723. And I didn't read the whole thing, but I just skipped through it, and so I just want to share a few things here. If you want to look more closely into it, I'll leave the link below. So it says the greatest possible care must be taken that these instructions do not fall into the hands of strangers. But if this should happen, let it be denied that these are the principles of the society, and let such denial be confirmed by those of our members whom we are sure know nothing of them. So it's saying there are some people within the order itself who don't know the ultimate agenda, which makes sense because we know a lot of organizations do that, a lot of secret societies do that. Chapter 1, it says, in order to render itself acceptable to the inhabitants of a place, the object of the society will be of great service. It is necessary to discharge the most humble duties in hospitals, to visit the poor and the afflicted and prisoners, that the principal inhabitants may be led to admire and love our people. So I'm just going to skim through what I've highlighted in here. And then it says, and cause them to be more liberal towards us. And then it says, all must learn the same outward manner. Be cautious in buying land. Let this be done in the names of some trusty and secret friends. Let the purchases which are adjacent to our colleges be assigned to colleges at a distance, by which means it will be impossible that princes or magistrates can ever have certain knowledge of the revenue of the society. So, they're trying to hide their revenue. And then it says, let the greatest amount be always extorted from widows. And let what is contained in the Roman treasury be kept secret. And this reminded me of Matthew 23, where it says, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer. And make long prayer for a pretense, that sounds to me like most of the church leaders that are in existence now. There's probably a few that are truly sincere, but most that I've seen, they all use the same vocal inflections while they're doing it. So you can tell that they are reciting these prayers just to conform to a community. And it actually says that right here in verse 5 of Matthew 23. But all their works they do is to be seen by men. In other words, they're just doing it to be accepted by other people. It says they love the uppermost rooms at feasts and the chief seats in the synagogues and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But Jesus says, do not be called Rabbi, because all of you are brethren. And do not call any human father. Your Father is in heaven. Neither be called masters. He that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And then again he says, woe unto you, hypocrites, for you devour widows' houses. And then Isaiah 10 also talks about this. It says, woe to them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed, that widows may be their prey. And then it says, without me they shall bow under the prisoners, and they shall fall under their slain. Because of course all throughout the biblical text it says, okay, their judgment is coming. And so this 18th century book right here, supposedly translated from the Jesuit secrets themselves, from an ex-Jesuit, says that the greatest amount should always be extorted from widows, and let what is contained in the Roman treasury be kept secret. Okay, well, everybody knows that the Roman treasury is filthy rich now. That's not a secret anymore. And we know the Jesuits vow their allegiance to the Pope above all. So their success at gathering wealth, which is what that book was talking about, is pretty much evident at this point. It's not a secret anymore, although they originally said they were trying to keep it secret several hundred years ago. This is the crown of jewels. Apparently it has sapphires, rubies, emeralds, and other gems covering it. Their robes, we know, are made of fine silk and linen, or fine linen and silk. And I'm not an expert on this, but in just a short search, I found at least 3 different thrones that the popes sit on, which I don't know why anybody needs to sit on a throne. I'm 100% certain that Jesus would not be sitting on a throne while people are lying in the street homeless and starving to death. And a true representative of Jesus wouldn't do that either. I think we pretty much all can see that, at this point. And so the agenda that the Jesuits had in this book, clearly they have been successful at that, because their agenda was to acquire as much wealth as possible for the church, and to do it at any means necessary. And so it's clear that they were successful at that they acquired their wealth and their status. Very successful at that. And this pretty much explains that they used really evil means of doing that. And then it says here in chapter 2, every means must be employed at the beginning that we may gain the ears and minds of princes and leading men, so that there may not be any who may dare to rise against us. And then it says their evil deeds, interpret them favorably under the pretext that is for the common good. Not only that, it says right here, if the prince begins to do anything that's not acceptable, he must be encouraged and urged on. And it says here, those who are of great authority in the state, they must be used in subduing and restraining the sort of people who are oppressed to our society. So they're going to use the government to get rid of their enemies, which are probably the good people in the world, the people that don't want to be part of it. And then it says, let our people so direct princes and illustrious men that they may appear to aim only at the greater glory of God, for their aim must not immediately, but gradually be directed to political and secular dominion. So very slowly over time, they're saying they want to take over the governments, basically. And then here, this is another one that's especially bad. It says, greater efforts must be made against those who attempt to set up schools for the education of youth. Let it be shown to princes and magistrates that these people will cause disturbance unless they are prevented. It's talking about people that just want to help children. They're to be demonized. And then it says here, concerning winning over rich widows to the society, it says that down here, they're going to do all these things that they may be more easily withdrawn from the conversation of visits and suitors. So they want these widows to remain lonely so they can take all their wealth and property. And then it talks about in what manner widows are to be secured and their property disposed of. So this pretty much explains why Jesus kept talking about widows all the time, saying those who, devour widows' houses. This is it right here. And then it says here, let the mothers be instructed to annoy their children even from infancy with reproofs, castigations, etc. And especially when daughters are grown up, let them be refused ornaments and apparel suitable to them. Then it talks about how they increase their revenue by accentuating those who are poor within their community, but keeping secret those who are wealthy. And I mean, that just shows you that they don't even take care of their own. They simply use their destitute to advance their own agenda. And then it says it's necessary to dismiss as an enemy whoever has alienated those who are devoted to the church or persuaded any rich person or any person well disposed to leave. And also it's necessary to dismiss those who show greater affection for their relatives when disposing of their property. So if someone wants to leave their house to their child, for example, then this society will not accept them and dismiss them as an enemy for simply wanting to give their own property to their children. And personally, when I was looking at this, the first thing I thought of was that this is the binding of the tares right here, because obviously they're taking in people that are really evil and making enemies of those that are actually good people. And I mean, it just immediately reminded me of Matthew 13, which says, gather first the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them. In other words, bind them in bundles in order to burn them. I mean, that's symbolic, but we know these texts are telling us a nuclear event is coming. That's the burning. And a great multitude will be saved from that, a multitude that can't be counted. But before that, the tares, the bad seed, will be bound together in bundles. So I mean, that's just what this seems like to me. Because if you continue reading this, you'll see they're dismissing good people and keeping bad. So they dismiss those who care for their relatives right here. And then not only that, they actually harass those people. It says, okay, those people that care about their relatives, we're going to dismiss them. But that they may not afterwards complain of the cause of their dismissal, which was that they cared for their own family, then let them not be dismissed immediately. Instead, let them be harassed with chapters and public censures, and let them be restrained from recreation and conversation with strangers. Let them be deprived until they are driven to murmuring, and then let them be dismissed as persons pernicious to others by bad example. So, and then it goes on, it says they will also do this kind of thing to those who know their secrets. First, let them be persuaded to promise in writing that they will never write or speak anything injurious to the society, but at the same time let the superiors preserve in writing their evil inclinations, failings, and vices, which they themselves have at some time given according to the custom of the society. So it's talking about their confessions right there. Their Catholic confessions will be used against them. Then it says, this is what's done to those who simply know their secrets and are dismissed. I mean, they might not even tell anyone the secrets their whole life, but just because they know some of the secrets, this is what is done to them. It says they are discredited and harassed simply because somebody suspected that they might tell the secrets later, not because they actually did anything. And by the way, this is still happening in our own day and age. I've been talking about that. I just uploaded a video on it. It's called organized stalking and harassment. So this is still going on. So I'll try to remember to link that below, that video, if you're interested in that. And then it says right here, outright, what they're doing is suppression. So let me just read through here. It says, it must be contrived that we may keep up an intimate correspondence with someone in the family in which the dismissed reside, and as soon as anything is discovered blamable or deserving of censure, let it be spread amongst the common people by means of persons of inferior degree who are attached to us. So we're going to have somebody from the church spy on them, hopefully somebody in their own family. But if not, they're probably going to use somebody else. And if something bad is discovered, we're gonna tell everybody in the community. And then it says, but if they commit nothing worthy of censure and conduct themselves in a praiseworthy manner, then let their virtues and actions, which are deserving of commendation, be depreciated by subtle insinuations and doubtful expressions until the esteem and confidence which is attached to them is diminished. So basically, if you can't find anything bad on them, just make it up. Just imply that they're doing bad things. And then it just outright admits that it's suppression, that's what they're doing. Okay. And then it talks about recruiting the men, let them associate with us, taking care that familiarity does not produce contempt. Well, I mean, why would it produce contempt unless they knew that what they were doing was bad? And this is, I'm just going to go through the headings of these chapters right here. You can read it later if you want to. And then it says, showing publicly a contempt for riches. So even though they're trying to gather wealth, they want everybody else to think, oh, they're not interested in that. And it says it will be necessary to act more here's a good one. After they manipulate the wealth out of those widows, it says it's necessary to be more resolute, to act more resolutely and sternly with widows and other persons who have given most of their property to the society. So basically, manipulate them into giving all their wealth and then treat them badly after that. And they talk about their methods of advancing the society. And then this at the end talks about the vows that their members take. I thought it was sort of strange how it says peculiar care in the education of boys. I'm not sure what that means. Then they promise special obedience to the Pope, blindly following whatever they're told to do by their superior, who they believe holds the place of Christ. And in this one, this person is vowing to depose and kill all the kings and princes who don't believe in their ideology. So,
well, that last statement kind of says it all. And we're going to take a break right now on the Investigative Journal. You can contact me at Greg Beacon, that's GregBeacon, @gmail.com. And we'll be back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal. And in the first half hour, we talked about the secret instructions of the Jesuits. And to show how that book, how those instructions play out, several stories I've done over the years bear mentioning. If you remember, years ago I did a story regarding Phil Kronzer. And he was a wealthy San Francisco Catholic businessman who him and his wife used to take trips to Medjugorje, you know, that place where they have the fake Mother Mary apparitions. And what happened was Phil was a very wealthy businessman and a believer in Catholicism. But what happened was a Bishop Nilica and their organization over in a Jesuit organization in Medjugorje happened to basically tell lies about Phil to his wife, which led to a divorce and basically led to the wife giving all of Phil's money, the money that was in her possession, to the Jesuits, basically kidnapped her. Phil set out to expose them, expose the lives of Medjugorje, and his life became a living hell. And I followed his story for years. He was basically ruined, and his own family didn't believe him. And it was an incredible story. The last I'd heard of Phil was he was in hiding somewhere on in some island, and I don't know exactly where. So basically, that story showed me, if you listen to what she was saying about the secret instructions of how they manipulate people and for the gain, for financial gain. Another person, of course, we have to look at was Father Alberto Rivera, a priest who told us how he was a high-level Jesuit who finally couldn't take it anymore, and told us how they infiltrate churches, prey on the weak, change doctrine, basically do the same thing they did to Phil to many people in many Protestant churches. Now, we also did the Tony Alamo story, which is another example of how they use our government officials to do the same thing. One, Tony Alamo's ministry was very, very outspoken about the role of the Vatican in the world, talking about how the book of Revelations points to the Vatican organization as the Antichrist, spreading millions and millions of brochures all over the world regarding the truth. You should go to read The Pope's Secrets by Tony Alamo. You can get that on the internet. Well, they set out to destroy him and put him in jail for 175 years for crimes he didn't commit. Then they proceeded to kidnap the children of this ministry, never finding any child abuse charges, but using the state to basically kidnap these kids. And then thirdly, now there's all these civil cases to take the property of these hardworking Christians. So you see it play out right there. Now, what I always tried to do when I lived in Italy and in Rome and was made aware of what these people are all about by some of the scandals going on during the 80s, the Vatican Bank scandal, etc. It's incredible stories. I in fact, was very lucky to be placed there because it opened my eyes to who they really were, because I had no idea before that. And what I found was this connection between Freemasonry and the Jesuits, and how they use this fraternal organization to do basically the same thing. The ends justify the means. And a story broke in Italy when I was there, and it came out in the French and Italian newspapers regarding how over 150 cardinals and bishops, high-level bishops and cardinals, names were given, their code names were given, were involved in high-level Masonic lodges. P2 was one of them. And this was a huge story because under canon law, if a Catholic priest is not to be, in canon law, they say outwardly, if you are involved in a Freemasonic lodge, you will be excommunicated. However, behind the scenes, these high-level priests were all involved in this. And it was a huge story there that never got to the United States. I might add, none of these priests were ever found, ever excommunicated, one being Cardinal Marcinkus, who was the head of the Vatican Bank, his nickname being Gorilla. He was a very large man. And it was one of the reasons why they killed Pope John Paul, to make way for John Paul II, after Pope John Paul was the Pope for 33 days. This was one thing he was trying to do, expose what was going on, and in a sense backstabbing them like Kennedy did. Well, anyway, for the remainder of this half hour, I wanted to make this connection, and I found a video by Walter Veith, and you should go to many of his videos regarding the Jesuits, because he eloquently explains a lot of the stuff that I talk about in this show, and he does it in a much better manner sometimes than I do, and I love listening to him. Well, I've caught a short video here where he was making this connection to Freemasonry to our political figures and how it all ties into the Jesuits. So I thought I'd play that right now. Here's Walter Veith.
Freemason political leaders in the United States, and I'm just quoting from various sources and web pages. There will be different ones here, so you can check it out for yourself, to show you just who's control at the moment. We'll just run through them quickly and see what degrees they are. Bill Clinton, 33 degree. Newt Gingrich, 33 degree. Bob Dole, 33 degree. Jack Kemp, 33 degree. Storm Thurmond, 33 degree. Colin Powell, 33 degree. Jesse Helms, 33 degree. Barry Goldwater, 33 degree. Al Gore, probably 33 degree. But Then another one over here, another one, James Monroe, Andrew Johnson, James Garfield, McKinley, Roosevelt, of course, William Taft, Franklin Roosevelt, Harding, Lyndon Johnson, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, all of them, Yitzhak Rabin, Yasser Arafat, Prince Philip, Duke of Kent, many others. Here's another source. Saddam Hussein, that's interesting. We'll have to come to him. 33-degree Freemason. Tony Blair, 33-degree. Gerhard Schröder, Prime Minister of Germany, if you like, President, 33-degree. Benjamin Netanyahu, 33. Yasser Arafat, 33-degree. Ronald Reagan, Gorbachev, Helmut Kohl, Shimon Peres. Helmut Kohl is also a committee of 300. Francois Mitterrand, 33, was Grand Orient Lodge, of course. Yitzhak Rabin, Willy Brandt, all of these old ones were Freemasons. Some more. Joseph Stalin, he was Illuminati. He was a member of the Grand Orient Lodge. Leon Trotsky, Grand Orient Lodge. Kissinger is a member committee of 300. J. Edgar Hoover, 33. Cecil John Rhodes, Aleister Crowley. Walt Disney was a 33-degree Freemason. Olive Palm, Al Gore, Tony Blair, Joseph Mengele. That's interesting. That's the mass murderer of the Nazis. He was Illuminati. Robert McNamara. You name it, they're all there. Billy Graham. Oops, sorry, let's move on. Colonel John Glenn, Buzz Aldrin, everyone who's ever been up in space has to be a Freemason of the highest degree. Edgar Mitchell, all the way through, Francis Bacon, Lord David Owen, all the negotiators, Richard Halbrook. I'm just running through some of them. Alan Greensprang, Peter Wallenberger, Queen Elizabeth is the queen of the Bilderbergers. Prince Philip, Queen Beatrix, she's the committee of 300. Prince Bernard of the Netherlands, committee of 300. And so we go on and on and on and on. Ted Kennedy, Rockefeller, David Rockefeller, Deng Hui, Baron von Rothschild. Hillary Clinton is 6 grand dame. She's a very high Freemason. Albert Pike, of course, you know, Bertrand Russell, Otto von Habsburg, Weishaupt, all the way back. Here is Edgar Hoover, President Dwight D. Eisenhower. There honors him with the 33 Grand Cross at the special White House ceremony. They're not ashamed of any of this. Here are just about all the presidents of the United States in the presidential gallery of the lodge. I photographed this myself. I went into the lodge, I went into the presidential gallery, I photographed each one of these. And then, me? Not me. Anyway, there they all are as Freemasons. If we look at the American dollar, some very interesting things happened under the time of Roosevelt. There is this symbol on the dollar, there's that symbol. We haven't got time for all of this. In God we trust. One, if you look at this symbol over here, it says Annuit Captus Novus Ordo Seclorum. If you intercalate the hexagram, then you'll have this A-S-N-O-M, which is a scrambling of Mason, Mason. If you go to the other side, it points to objects, and it then reads Arlto, you have Arlington. There's too much there to talk about, and many interesting things. If you go to the 1 and you go to the half moon, there's a little structure over there. Can you see it? It's a micro dot. You'll have to get a magnifying glass and look at it under a magnifying glass, and you'll see it's a little owl. A little owl. Owl in a half moon. And this over here you'll see is a spider's web. There's a lot of symbolism over here. Now if you go to the ancient coins, you'll see that the deities were associated with the owl, and you will see that when we went to the Bohemian Grove, what did they worship there? The great owl of Bohemia, and you saw the presidents of the United States bow down to the owl of Bohemia. Quite a scary business. Now, looking at this symbol, you have the all-seeing eye of Lucifer. It is not yet on the base of the triangle. When it is placed on, he will have his kingdom. But that is Lucifer, Annuit Coptus, he God, Novus Ordo Seclorum, new order of the ages. There are 13 levels over there. The bottom one is the date of the founding of the independence of the United States, but it is also the founding of the Illuminati. You have the spider's web, symbol of the new age. You have over here the band, the ribbon of Lucifer. We'll see it over here in this Roman Catholic Church, where you have Anubis, the phoenix, symbol of Jupiter, the god Jupiter, and the skull and crossbones, and there you have the ribbon. You see it? Associated with Jupiter. That's on the flame. And all of these symbols tell us one interesting story. On the other side, you have this symbol. There are 9 feathers, there are 13 spears, there are 13 leaves, there are 13 pentagrams shaped in the form of a hexagram. You have the eagle. You have this statement over here, Autoribus unum, out of many one. We're going to reunite all nations. So that's the symbolism of a new world order on the dollar. The world is going to be united under one central government. And that government is going to be in control of Lucifer, not Jesus Christ. Although Jesus Christ, of course, knows about it, permits it, and is ultimately in control. He tells us ahead of time that this is going to happen. And then the end of the story is that Jesus will reign on this planet. If we look at the architecture even, it is interesting. That is St. Peter's. That is the Capitol building. The architecture is identical. Of course, the building itself was designed, the American one, by Freemasonry. And Freemasonry is in control by whom? The Jesuit order. Now let's have a look at some of the symbolism over there and some of the interesting issues. We are now ready for the Second World War, and the 3 main role players of the Allies are this man over here, Winston Churchill, and he was a what? 33-degree Freemason. We saw Roosevelt in his full Masonic regalia. He was a 32 or 33-degree Freemason. And then we have Stalin, who was, of course, Grand Orient member, so 33-degree Freemason. They're all on one side. Extract from a report by Ambassador Harriman in Moscow to the State Department, June 30, 1944. Stalin paid tribute to the assistance rendered by the United States to Soviet industry before and during the war. He said that about 2/3 of all the large industrial enterprises in the Soviet Union had been built with United States help or technical assistance. The other third had been Britain. So who built the USSR? Who built it? The West. The West financed it and built it. Here you can see Winston Churchill in his Druid Masonic Lodge with all his Druid fellows around him. So these are genuine facts. This isn't just conjecture. Do you remember Pearl Harbor? Well, fortunately, the 50 years of Secrecy Act are past, and so now we know for a fact, because this has been revealed, that they knew that Pearl Harbor was going to be attacked. Is that correct? And they chose not to do anything about it. Why? Because they needed an incident to start a war. The American Constitution was not going to permit them to enter a war. They needed an incident, and they created it. In fact, that is mass murder of their own people. Is that correct? Because they knew about it. This is public knowledge. It's in the news. The 50 years secrecy is up. Nobody can deny it anymore. It's a fact. So America, once before, has killed thousands of its own people to allow something to become possible that wasn't possible before. Once done successfully, do you think I could do it again? I wonder. What about the other side? Hitler. Hitler said, I learned much from the order of the Jesuits. Until now, there has never been anything more grandiose on earth than the hierarchical system of the Catholic Church. I transferred much of this organization into my own party. The SS was constituted according to the Jesuit principles. Himmler, head of the SS, was closely associated with the Jesuits through his father and brother. Hitler said of him, I can see Himmler as our Ignatius of Loyola. And Joseph Goebbels was also a trained Jesuit. So, the two sides, who controls them both? The same parties. This is called thesis, antithesis. Goebbels, Himmler, these people were Jesuits. They were fascists. Adolf Hitler, fascist, using the symbolism of the sun god, the Maltese cross, the symbols of the sun god. Here he is with Hindenburg himself, of course, a Freemason. This thing is all entirely planned. Gaining the youth on his side. One of the principal Catholic personalities to help Hitler to power was Franz von Papen. And Franz von Papen, of course, leader of the Catholic Party, helped to skyrocket Hitler to power. So the Catholic Church skyrocketed Hitler to power. And these are posed pictures. They have Masonic meaning, but we'll get to that later. The Reichsadler, chosen as the symbol, Masonic symbol. And the supposed happy alliance in the beginning, which then deteriorates. Here you see the salute with the Masonic activities associated with it. Here he is together with the church leaders. And here you can see the cardinals giving the Heil Hitler salute. So the church was very much involved with the Nazi movement. There is a bunch of cardinals giving the Heil Hitler salute. The Pope and the Führer, you will recall that even to this day there is tremendous anger about Pope Pius having now been declared on his way to sainthood because of his connection with the Nazi movement. Well, here is the new Reichsbischof Ludwig Müller, the Protestant one, who greets Adolf Hitler with a nice handshake. The previous one, the previous Protestant bishop, no longer lived because Adolf Hitler had him executed. So this one must have been a puppet on the religious side. So the Catholics and the Protestants next to each other. Now understand the war. Let's think about the war. Who is the problem in terms of the Roman Catholic Church? Firstly, the Orthodox Church in the East had been a problem. The First World War sorted that out. The Tsar had been removed, and the Orthodox Church had been subjected, as were all the churches, to make it look right, by atheistic communism. But the leaders of communism were all Catholics. In fact, I have traveled in many of those countries, and the old people all told me, now we understand why the leaders of the communist regimes, why they all attended the Catholic Church. Why, if they were all atheists, were they such good Catholics? Well, this mighty army is built up, but Germany is divided. The north of Germany, and particularly the east of Germany, is all Protestant. They're Lutherans. And they are skeptical of the papacy. Whereas the south of Germany is all Catholic. In the Orthodox countries, like the entire USSR, you have the Orthodox Church controlling the mindset of the people. Now, since the takeover of communism, that has been reduced or subjected, and the Orthodox Church has been subject to the state. Now comes this mighty war. The symbols being carried here are the symbols of Lucifer. They're also used in theosophy. There you can see them. There's the swastika, the all-seeing serpent. And Adolf Hitler himself was a tremendous occultist. Of course, as a Jesuit insider, he would be. But of course, his outer garb of religion was Catholicism. You'll find the same swastika on the foot of Buddha. And, as I recall, as I told you before, it was a Jesuit priest, Father Stempfler, not Hitler, who really wrote Mein Kampf. So, a Jesuit wrote the book. The SS has the same symbols as the Skull and Bones people. The skull with the crossbone, meine Ehre, heißt Treue. My honor means Treue, to be loyal, loyalty. The SS had been organized by Himmler according to the principle of the Jesuit order and became basically the new, if you like, Inquisition. And anybody who did not obey the system was destroyed. Now,
Okay, that was a pretty good recap by Walter regarding the Jesuit connection to the Nazis and what was going on and how they orchestrated World War II. In fact, how our leaders knew about Pearl Harbor and did not warn our citizens. And we know that happened in 9/11 as well. So we sit now 16 years after 9/11 in the Trump administration. His connection to Freemasonry is, I know a lot of people have been looking. There is a connection, but it's masked. It's hard to pin him to any lodge or anything like that. But I think it's our duty right now to figure out what they're doing. Are they planning World War III? Because we know they're moving towards a one world order, a one world religion, despite Trump's populist movement that's going on in our country now. We've talked much about the Hegelian dialectic being played out right before our eyes, with the left and the right much divided in this country now. But I think it's our responsibility to start thinking about what do they have planned for us now? What does 2017 and 2018 have planned for us now? Is there a major conflict on the horizon? I heard just the other day that the Trump administration is thinking about military force against North Korea. Just another one of their ideas going on right now. So we got to really think about that, don't we? And I think by looking back again, as we did in this show, to the basics, first, the organization of the Jesuits in our country, their control, and the many, many Jesuits in power right now in our government. And then looking back at what they did briefly here with Walter Veith again. We've covered much of this on my shows in the past as well. But briefly looking back at what they did in World War II, how they orchestrated that, should be important to us to see how what they're gonna do and how they're orchestrating the next major conflict in their quest to create this one world order, one world religion. We'll be back tomorrow Friday on the Investigative Journal. Hope you enjoyed the show. See you tomorrow on FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.